Sometimes I'm surprised at board meetings. Not often, but sometimes I am. You will see that in this video, I'm very surprised at the outcome. It surprised a lot of community members, and I've been asked about it quite often. So I wanted to pull the clips and show you. We also had some strong public comment from Matt Oker and Sam Brannon, and I'll have clips of that also. And I'll also include remarks from the board and, of course, my remarks. I was really surprised the board didn't pass the resolution for voting centers. It was on the March 11th agenda, and we provided a lot of information for it. But at the March 25th meeting, 4 more board members asked to pull it from the agenda. So the agenda item was for a resolution to support voting centers. Voting centers on general election day allow voters to vote anywhere. We can already vote anywhere during early voting. Voting centers would allow voters the convenience of voting anywhere on election day. This will improve voter turnout and eliminate the need to turn away voters simply because they arrived at an incorrect polling location on election day. Now, Travis and Williamson counties already do this. They're among the 52 other Texas counties that participate in the countywide polling place program, and Hays County's participation will bring consistency among central Texas counties. According to the materials we had received prior to the March 25th meeting, the Hays County Election Office asked Hays CISD and all the other governmental bodies in Hays County to pass a resolution in support of the voting centers. This would increase the chances the Secretary of State's office would allow Hays County to start voting centers during the November 2019 constitutional election, which would allow them to test during an off-year election, so they could be ready for the 2020 presidential election. Only a limited number of counties can begin a voting center each year. So the Hays CISD Board supported the resolution. It will improve the chances Hays County is approved of voting centers. The resolution was very important. So before the vote, we had 2 persons provide public comment against the proposal. The first person was Sam Brannon, and the second person was Matt Oker.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm Sam Brannon. I'm actually out of San Marcos, but you've got an item on your consent agenda that I'd like to address. My primary concern with countywide polling places is we don't really know what kind of outcome that's going to have on election day. We believe it's going to be more accessible to people, but we don't know if they're all going to gravitate toward certain polling places, and it might make the lines extremely long in some of those. And I think the real problem is that we have a problem in our elections office. You might not be aware.
Next up, we have Matt Oker.
This election day countywide polling, the reason how we know how to staff our precincts is because we know that precinct 230, and these are fake numbers, but precinct 230 has 2,300 voters. We know historically this an election held on this uniform election date produces this amount of turnout. So we know how many voting machines to have there. We know how many election judges to have there. What are you going to do? Where are you going to pick? How are you going to predict the people that are coming back from their jobs, which is supposedly who this is catering to, where are they going to vote? I mean, the interesting thing is one of the things in the resolution says they're worried about people getting turned away. How many people are going to turn themselves away because they show up at a polling location that's extremely convenient and there's a line way around the corner? So these things are problems.
The voting center item was on the consent agenda. A consent agenda is a group of items that are not likely to be controversial, so they can be approved via one motion. Any board member can pull a consent agenda item for a separate vote. So Trustee Willie McManus and Trustee Esperanza Orozco the agenda item, and then Trustee McManus discusses why he doesn't support it, and then 3 other trustees also say they don't want the resolution. And with 4 against it, it's effectively dead. Then I give my reasons for supporting the resolution after that. So here are the clips.
Of your agenda, Mr. McManus.
I'm just not quite real clear on why we need to be a part of this. This is a very political thing. I appreciate our speakers coming and telling us this information, but I don't like the fact that this body's having to deal with that. I mean, I understand we're part of elections. I get all of that. But I mean, primarily we're supposed to be about students, and so I'd like to stay focused on that, and not agreeing with this is something that probably are not publishing it or whatever, adopting it, what I'm looking for is probably the best course of action at this time. I don't know, at least someone from the Commissioner's Court ought to come and speak to us about what it is that they want at a bare minimum.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McManus. Mrs. Rosca?
I like the idea of getting some more information. When I read the information and they wanted a resolution in support of the application, I understand it's kind of just for show that we're unified, the county and everybody and so on, but I would like to get a little bit more information on some of those issues. I know that the county is supposed to be forming like an election committee to kind of address some of those problems that folks are talking about. So I would like to get a little bit more information on that if we do need to pass a resolution, because I don't know if our body needs to do that.
Thank you, Mrs. Rosca. Mrs. Tobias?
I concur. I think that I would have liked to see maybe someone from the Commissioner's Court or someone else to get more information on this. Why are we being asked to pass this resolution? And other than, I understand we need to stand unified. They're wanting us to be unified as a county, but I just would like some more information before we pursue this.
Perfect. So I am in agreement with that. There are a couple of upcoming meetings that we can attend if we're interested for further information. So that's 4 that I count. I'm sorry, I didn't finish down here. Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Tenorio.
But the purpose of this item really is about getting the county to allow anybody to vote anywhere on election day. So if you go to early vote, you can vote anywhere. But if you vote on the day of, you have to vote at your polling location. And I know, as a person who's run, multiple times, and I've probably, since I've been 20 years old, I've probably volunteered on at least maybe 24 campaigns through my life, or probably more. And I've been a worker bringing people out. One of the things that we have the most problems with is people get confused as to what location they need to vote at. Because in November you vote in one location, in May you may vote in another location. For us as elected officials, we always know where our polling location is. But for most people, they don't have to pay attention as much, so they get confused. And so every time I'm working a polling location for me or for another organization or for another candidate, that's been a constant struggle where people show up at the wrong place, and especially in the November elections, when people have to go to work, people show up at the wrong polling place. If they get the polling place wrong, they don't get to vote usually, because a lot of times they have to go to work. So the purpose of this item is just to try to make it easier for people to vote and bring more people out. And I realize that a lot of people have issues with the way some of the elections have been run. But that doesn't really separate from the fact that we have to make it easier for people to vote. And that's all this really is, making it easier for people to vote. Now, there may be other issues that need to be worked out, but the main thing is that you want to make it easier for people to vote and create a better turnout. And one way to do that is to make sure, and we have the technology to do it, is to make sure people can vote everywhere. Now, obviously, this is not going to go anywhere because there's 4 people who don't want to vote for it here, but I don't want the issue to be obvious.
The item is now back on the April 15th, 2019 agenda. So voting centers will be there on April 15th, so we can discuss it again, and then the vote will occur April the 22nd. So I'm hopeful that this time it may pass. Stay tuned, and I'll keep you updated. And this is Willie Tenorio Jr., your Hays CISD School Board member. Thanks so much.